If I told you the fastest way for NASA to get back to the moon is not to reuse Starship, but to throw it away after every launch, in absolute darkness, before even the first ray of light, a single question echoes. How far will humanity go? From the ground, this first ignition tears through gravity, opening the path for a new generation of rockets. NG-2 is not just a mission code. It is another step in building the infrastructure for a cislunar economy. While we focus on the moon, spacecraft like Escapade prove that true ambition always reaches for many worlds at once. New Glenn stands silent on the pad, a promise that future cargo to orbit will be larger and more frequent than ever before. Even the booster descending onto Jacqueline is part of the equation, pushing launch costs low enough to make the moon a routine destination. The lander easing down toward the moon reminds us the goal is not just to touch it, but to operate safely around it. These quiet loops in lunar orbit show that this place is about to become a crossroads for human missions. This blue plume of thrust is the concentrated result of years of modeling, tuning, and optimization between Earth and Moon. Every time a rocket leaves the pad, it reminds us that all lunar infrastructure must begin with a column of fire on Earth. Alone in deep space, this silent sentinel marks a growing transport route around Earth and the Moon. As rocket stages separate in orbit, each piece has finished its role in the chain that delivers cargo to deep space. From afar, every probe and cratered surface is a data point that shapes safer paths for human explorers. On the lunar outpost, each careful motion by an astronaut answers the question, can we truly work here like on any job site on Earth? Two landers with different designs standing side by side prove multiple architectures can share one common lunar economy. When Dave Limp talks about the future of flight to orbit, he speaks as someone turning slides into metal, propellant, and real trajectories. Leadership vision only matters when it becomes a concrete plan. Launch cadence, tonnage to orbit, and timelines for the first moon flights. Under a massive fuselage, every rivet and tiny ROW-12 label shows that space missions are built on meticulous craft at ground level. In the glow of sunset, the pad brightens under floodlights, marking the moment when theory is about to meet ignition. As the engines roar into the night, each burning second decides whether months of checks were enough or must be done all over again. Every yellow cargo box lowered onto lunar soil is one more brick in turning this place from an outpost into a logistics hub. The huge panel slowly settling into place will someday fold, deploy, and work flawlessly in a vacuum with no easy second chances. In deep space, each decelerating descent like this is the final exam of whether the design is reliable enough to one day carry people. The Blue Moon display is more than pretty 3D renders. It is a detailed blueprint for the first serious lunar cargo runs. As the blueprint lines resolve, the moon stops being an abstract goal and becomes an engineer's problem of size, mass, and delta V. Every time a robot sets cargo onto the gray dust, it rehearses a sequence that must repeat hundreds of times to build a base. Neutral buoyancy training here lets astronauts rehearse every ladder step and twist that will later happen in 1/6 gravity. Starship on the shoreline proves this is not a one-horse race. Multiple giant systems will be needed far beyond the moon. The lander gliding over jagged craters shows how crucial precise terrain knowledge is before every safe touchdown. This lunar rendezvous is the backbone of the architecture. Without safe docking here, no crewed landing plan survives contact with reality. The abstract orbital lattice represents low-energy pathways where gravity is exploited to save every precious meter per second of velocity. The sharp line between lunar day and night mirrors the boundary between regions we know well and those still only roughly mapped. Blue Moon and Orion flying together illustrate how NASA and private industry are splitting roles between crew transport and surface access. Two landers framing distant Earth declare that the moon is no longer a one-off destination, but a place we intend to revisit. A single lander beneath an enormous crescent moon shows the imbalance. Our machines are tiny, yet precise enough to stand upright here. This composite view of moon, lander, and capsule underlines one truth. The future of exploration is many interlocking systems, not one super rocket. As the lander eases toward the half-lit surface, it embodies a trade-off between usable light and harsh thermal extremes. Twin landers bearing the Blue Origin logo beside distant Earth visualize a very specific scenario. Many flights, many vehicles, one repeating supply chain. Orion's engine plume in the black proves that whether it is SLS, New Glenn, or Starship, every architecture obeys the same orbital mechanics. Every rocket climbing through the blue sky is the first step in turning factory metal into the speed needed to catch the moon. An astronaut drifting above Earth's curve reminds us that every deeper mission builds on experience won here in low Earth orbit. A rover placing cargo beside the Blue Moon lander makes one point clear. Heavy work on the moon must be handed to robots, not humans. The small cube at an astronaut's feet may be power, sensors, or science, but every box is a tool to turn dust into data. The NG-2 static fire at the coastal pad is a dress rehearsal to ensure the real launch begins with a proven engine, not a guess. In the night, this first burst of flame turns the entire pad into day, ending the era of spreadsheets and starting real-world testing. Technicians on the lift around the aerodynamic nose show that spectacular liftoffs rest on months of careful torque checks and alignments. Each giant night launch feeds thousands of sensors, generating data that will sharpen the next generation of vehicles. The rocket standing under dramatic clouds is the final moment of stillness before it endures the loudest minutes of its existence. A tiny capsule drifting away over blue Earth reveals one building block of a logistics chain, being separated, tested, and refined. From the lunar surface, Earth rising on the horizon shows how far we have come and how close we still are to home.
As regolith billows under the engines, everyone waits for the dust to clear and answer the only question: is the lander still upright? Inside the suspended module, engines, tanks, and wiring laid bare tell the truth. This is a living machine where every part has a purpose.
Will depend on
In the New
reliable
Glenn factory,
vehicles
these
to
gigantic
deliver
barrel
cargo
sections
safely
are the
to the
backbone of a
surface.
rocket meant to lift hundreds of tons at once. The scarred lunar surface below reminds us this world has taken billions of years of impacts, while we have visited it for only moments. The swelling white cryogenic dome and hissing gas show where material limits are pushed long before launch day arrives. The Blue Moon title beside the lunar disk is a declaration. This product is built to turn Earth's satellite into a regular destination. As Jeff Bezos speaks beside the lander model, he argues a simple point: a lunar economy needs a reliable truck to haul cargo down. These early descents of habitat landers mark a shift from scouting the moon to laying down real infrastructure. On the distant horizon, faint glow and a thin crescent hint that even when the moon feels familiar, new targets still wait beyond. Earth as a small crescent over a lunar base shows that this outpost is only the first way station on a much longer journey. Each landed habitat module is a new house on a world with no air, promising that crews will return and stay longer next time. The radial dust plume fanning out from the thrusters is priceless data on how regolith behaves around delicate surface hardware. The sweeping light across the module's deck highlights how every panel, sensor, and arm must be surveyed, scanned, and certified before flight. Labels like fuel cell and LH2 on this module signal that our lunar future depends on complex power and cryogenic systems, not just flags and footprints. When the Blue Moon model glows on stage, the public briefly sees the actual hardware intended to touch lunar soil. The habitat-like lander settling into the dust marks the end of pure reconnaissance and the beginning of real infrastructure deployment. On the far horizon, faint glow and a slender crescent show that even once the moon is routine, new goals will still pull us outward. Crescent Earth and a ghostly galaxy in the sky underscore that a moon base is merely the first rung on a very tall ladder. Two astronauts working around the lander evoke a familiar night shift, except this one happens on a world with no atmosphere. The Blue Moon Mk1 and Mk2 blueprints tell an evolutionary story, the first version to learn, the second to operate at scale. In the night engine test, blue-orange flame and crashing water show chemistry being turned into controlled thrust. Each sideways blast across the wet pad gives engineers real-world numbers on durability, vibration, and performance. The high-energy flame from the complex nozzle proves that new engine ideas only matter if they survive trials this brutal. The shifting blue, white, and orange exhaust is a live graph of whether the engine is behaving exactly as the models predicted. As the transfer vehicle burns in orbit, every second of thrust shortens the distance between high modules and the moon below.
Stage
The
1
silver
deployment
craft, descending by
nominal.
3 blue engines, represents
Confirming
pure
full
focus on the
extension
last
on
critical
panel
meters
7.
before touchdown. That lone red flicker on the lunar horizon might be a beacon or a tiny station, but it signals that this surface is no longer untouched. In the towering high bay, the unfolding silver structure is a full-scale rehearsal for fabric and frameworks that must deploy flawlessly in vacuum. The detailed lunar crescent shows we can now choose landing sites, kilometer by kilometer, instead of aiming at broad regions. The icy ripples across the black liquid model the strange, unforgiving world of cryogenics, where fuel obeys only precise control. This drifting mist makes visible the same kinds of flows and plumes that usually live only inside fluid dynamics simulations. These glowing bubbles rising in darkness are a miniature stand-in for how
What
propellants
about
and
this
gases
access
will
panel
move
here?
inside tanks in low
That
gravity.
controls the primary life
This
support
research core
conduit.
is where ideas
It
for
seems
power,
secure.
cooling, and storage are proven before being trusted in orbit. In the clean room, every step past the giant module shows that cleanliness is as critical as strength for anything headed to space. As the core vibrates and its internal glow pulses, it signals that the system is behaving as the design models predicted. The slowly turning mechanism under cold lab light ensures every rotation and vibration is measured for future flight hardware. The satellite coasting above Blue Earth is part of the network that will relay data and navigation for missions to the moon and beyond. From above, the Blue Origin campus is the groundside infrastructure built for one purpose: to launch more, farther, for less. Underwater, divers threading through twisted metal rehearse emergency scenarios no one ever wants to face on a real station. The orbital gateway of white modules and gold foil is the transfer hub where Earthbound and moonbound vehicles will meet and part ways. As the camera glides along robotic arms and docked modules, the future becomes clear that many different systems must learn to share one orbital complex. This close look at the lunar surface lets planners point to specific craters and say, this is where we should land, and that is where we must avoid. From the rover cockpit, a robotic arm bearing a tiny flag swings its hammer and sensors, uniting science and operations in a single view. The habitat, solar array, rover, and 2 suited figures form the first draft of the off-Earth neighborhoods we once only sketched on paper. In the bright high bay, the radiator and propulsion module sections stand ready to be joined into the next ship linking Earth and Moon.